Thrikkakkara. Stars, stars shine at night. Some stars shine at bright daylight. It's our pleasure to welcome one such star, Miss Asman N, Assistant Professor in English at the Cochin College. She has 4 years of experience in teaching and mentoring and has also occupied the role of an editor over the past years. We welcome you, ma'am. Next, I would like to welcome our manager, A.M. Abubakar, our principal, Dr. E.T. Umar, Vice Principal, Dr. Aneeb K. Jos, Academic Director, Dr. P.M. Naushad, Director of PG Department, Dr. C. Sadishan, Director Administrator, Sabina Ma'am, and the Head of the Department, Maimunat. And at last but not the least, I welcome each and every one of you who is going to make this venture a success. Thank you.
Thank you, Adisha. Now I heartily welcome our star of the day, our guest, Miss Ashmin N.
Thank you, Roshna. Thank you, Ajisha. I hope I'm audible to you. So let me express my pleasure and gratitude to the management and to the HOD of English Department, KMM College, for having me here in this virtual space today. So as you might already know, we are discussing the topic, the aesthetics of interview skills. Okay, so let me just present my screen to you. I hope it's visible. My job today is not to instruct you, but merely to guide you. Okay? And today we are going to see things from the perspective of an interviewer rather than an interviewee. Okay? Many of you students might be a degree student, or you might be a PG student, and very soon you will be facing an interview board. Okay? In whatever field of expertise you might belong to, you will have to face an interview sooner or later, and it's very essential in today's world to have interview skills, proper interview skills. So my job here is to guide you along with me as we progress and discuss about and strategize about different ways in which you can approach an interview and shine through. All right. So I hope this session might be fruitful to you in the best manner possible. So let's start. Okay. So the very first question that you need to ask yourself is, how can you stand out from the rest? All right. So when you go for an interview, you might be interviewed beside 20 or 30 or 40 other different candidates. So how can you stand out, or how can you be different? How can you get selected? That is a question that we are going to analyze and discuss over. All right. So let me move on to the different stages of an interview. So whether you're writing a PSC exam, your GATE exam, your NET exam, or whatever exam that you might be preparing for, okay, you will have to pass through all these different stages. Okay, I have roughly divided into 4 different stages. The initial one is a written test. You all know what is meant by a written test. A written test will, let me just 1 second. Yes. So a written test can be considered as an elimination round. Okay, usually written test as well as group discussion can be considered as an elimination round. Okay? If you doesn't fulfill the minimum required criteria that is deemed necessary by the interview board, you will get disqualified. Okay, and this disqualification is done while or through the process of the written test as well as group discussion. Okay, and following that we will have a preliminary round of interview, which is basically an identification process. Okay, those who they deem necessary or uh, will help in the growth of their company will get identified through the process of the preliminary round of interview, and in the final interview it's a kind of a selection process. So if you are a fresh graduate, if you doesn't have any prior experience in the field of your expertise, you will have to undergo all these four different stages. You will have a written test first, which will be followed by a GD, and then a preliminary interview, and a final round of interview. Okay. And suppose if you belong to the mid level, that is, if you are, for example, a sales assistant. Okay. So in that case, you have 2 or 3 experience in the marketing field. And just giving an example. Okay. So in that case, you will have to only go through the preliminary round of interview, and then the final selection process, the final interview. And suppose if you are the area manager, for example, you are in charge of the whole state of Kerala. Okay, in that case, if you are that experienced in your field, then you need to give only the final round of interview, which is basically a selection process. Okay, so we are going to dissect each of this in turn. That is, we are going to analyze written test first. All right. Now, looking at the written test, a written test is meant to test your subject knowledge. Okay, it is to understand the knowledge of the candidate and his or her field of expertise. It might be a descriptive exam, but mostly it might also be an MCQ type questions. Okay, MCQ multiple choice questions you will have during a written test. Okay, so it is merely meant to eliminate those candidates who doesn't fulfill the required criteria, or who doesn't have the minimum required subject knowledge. Okay. And as stated earlier, it's an elimination process. So the objective is not to identify who is the best candidate, or not to see who has secured the highest marks, but to disqualify those who doesn't even fulfill the minimum required criteria. Okay. So apart from, you'll already be provided with a certain set of syllabus for your written test. For example, they'll tell you, or they'll intimate you earlier as to the requirement they need. For example, your IQ will be tested, your reasoning and analytical skills will be tested, then your general awareness will be tested. So all these things will be tested apart from your subject knowledge. Okay. So all these things will be intimated to you about prior to the written test. Okay. So just keep in mind that a written test is meant merely to eliminate you, and not to find out the best candidate, or to know who has secured the highest marks. Okay. And after the written test comes GD. We always hear that GD is quite relevant in an interview, or a group discussion is one of the most quintessential part of an interview. Okay. So why is GD so important? Can anyone tell me? Why is GD very significant in an interview? You can unmute your mic and answer me. Why do you think GD is important?
When,
Yes.
when the candidates are tested, like in the group discussion part, it is usually seen, the confidence level is usually checked, and the leadership qualities are also, determined with the way a person, as you already have said, that how can you stand out from the rest. So this quality is determined using this tool, using the group discussion.
Yes, thank you for that answer. It's very true. Okay. GD brings out many of the, or GD is one way in which the interview board can assess your interpersonal skill. Okay. Always remember that when you work for any firm or organization, for that matter, you can never work in isolation. You'll always have to work together as a team. Okay. So sometimes you have to occupy the role of a team leader, or sometimes you will be a team member. Okay, when you are a team leader, you will have some subordinates working under you, and sometimes on the other hand, you will also have to work as a team member. Okay, so it is very important that you develop an interpersonal relationship, and your interpersonal relationship or social skills can be assessed only through the process of a group discussion. Okay, so that is why group discussion is very, very relevant when it comes to the field of interview. All right, so you can never work in isolation. You will have to work together as a team, and then they'll be able to identify whether you have any leadership qualities. Okay, as ma'am already mentioned. Okay. So let's look at the type of GD questions that are often asked. Okay, we can again segmentalize it into 4 different categories. You might be asked a very general question. For example, you might be asked about the present COVID crisis and how is it affecting the society in general, or how is it detrimental to the society, or okay, such kind of general questions can be asked, or he might be asked about demonetization for that matter. Okay, so we can general questions can come for a group discussion, and sometimes it might be a controversial topics where some people will speak uh, in favor of that particular topic or against it. For example, I'm just making a statement: women make better managers than men. Okay, so it's a controversial topic where there might be some people who are speaking in favor of it and some against it. Okay, so either it can be asked a general question, or it can be a controversial topic, or it can be an abstract idea. Okay, for example, failure. I'm quoting a sentence: failure is the stepping stone to success. Okay, so this is a very abstract quote. You can interpret it in many different manners. Okay, so sometimes you might be given such kind of an abstract statement, and you will be asked to elucidate on that. Okay, in other cases, it might be case study based. For example, you are supposed to imagine that you're working in a firm and some kind of a crisis comes up. Okay, so you are asked to find together as a team a resolution to overcome the particular crisis. Okay, so that is a case study based question, and in a GD you can expect any of these questions. Okay, so depending upon the kind of firm or organization for which you are giving the particular interview, it can vary. All right. Now, how do we perform well in a group discussion? Okay, so this is a very tricky matter in the sense that if you have a very thorough understanding of the particular topic that is given, you can always initiate the group discussion. Okay, suppose, for example, if you are somebody who is very aware of socially relevant uh, things that are occurring around you, and if a particular social issue is provided, and if you are very confident that you can speak about it, you can definitely initiate the conversation. Okay, so you need to have a very good or strong understanding of the content to initiate the conversation. And remember that if you are the initiator of a particular conversation, all the 20 different people or 10 different people sitting uh, together with you, okay, they will be giving utmost attention to every single thing that is falling out of your mouth. Okay, so usually if the group is very large, okay, following the written test, suppose it's 50 candidates got like selected following the written test. Okay, so these 50 candidates might be divided into 10 different 5 different groups. Okay, and each group will contain such 10 different members, and in that case you will sit together and a particular topic is given to you, and there will be somebody from the interview board to assess the way in which you perform things. Okay, so in such cases, if you have a thorough understanding of the topic, you can initiate it, and you can initiate it in different manners. You can start by stating facts. Okay, for example, you can say like based on the recent human development index. Okay, so you can state facts, or you can quote examples, or you can speak from your own personal experience. Okay, but don't prolong it for, or don't keep on dragging it for such a long time that it might be boring to the others. Okay, so these are some of the ways in which you can initiate the conversation, and initiate the conversation only if you're confident that you have a thorough understanding of the topic. Okay, and another very tricky thing you can do is sometimes you'll be asked to introduce yourself prior to the group discussion. You'll be sitting together initially as a group, and the interview board members will ask you to introduce yourself. Okay, so in that case, take note of the name of few other candidates who are sitting along with you, and when they express something and when you want to agree with them, you can always call out their names. Okay, so it is to ensure that you are really listening to what the other person has got to say, and you are respecting their point of view. Okay, so it always calls to attention when you call somebody's name. For example, you can say what Nisha said is very relevant to today's society. Nisha might be another candidate sitting opposite to you. Okay, so just take note of a few of their names. And suppose if you are given a topic and you doesn't have much understanding about that particular topic, what will you do then? Okay, so in such cases, what you can do is just wait it out for some time. Okay, just listen to what the other people around you have to say. Listen to the first person speak, listen to the second person speak, and by then you will have some idea of what the topic is about, and then you can initiate the, or then you can come up with your point of view or your perspective. Okay? And in some cases, you'll be provided with a notepad and a pen, and you can jot down your points and you can organize your ideas. Okay? If a paper and pen is provided to you in certain cases. Okay? So this is one way in which you can initiate the conversation. And suppose you are agreeing with any statement. Okay, somebody is saying something and you can agree with what the other person is saying. Okay? So you can say it in these manners: I endorse your statement, or I second you on that opinion. I strongly feel the same. And if you know the name of the person, you can say what Nisha said is very relevant to today's society. Okay. And how do you disagree with somebody else? So often, very often, you may not agree with what the other person has to say. Okay, so how do you disagree with them? You can say that I oppose your point of view, or I beg to differ from you. I am afraid that is not right. You can disagree, but always do it in a very polite manner so that it is not offensive to the other person. Okay, and always be free of bias. Okay, do not sit in judgment of the others. Okay? Those every other individual sitting alongside you in a group discussion might have different viewpoints. They are coming from a different social environment, and they might be coming from a different social or cultural background. Okay? So always the kind of opinion and beliefs you have might be different from what the other person has got to say. Okay? So always respect their point of view, and even if you disagree, do it in a polite manner, and do not be biased, do not be prejudiced. Okay? And how do you interrupt in a conversation? Okay, you can start by apologizing first, saying I'm sorry to interrupt. Okay, and sometimes you may partially agree with somebody. That is, if somebody is expressing more than one point of view or more than uh, two connected facts, sometimes you may agree with the first statement made by the same person, and sometimes you may disagree with half of what he or she is saying. Okay? So in that case, you can say like this: that is, I agree with you on this, but I have a different opinion on these topics or concerning these topics. Okay? And then how do you add few extra points? You want to add few points to what somebody has already expressed. Okay, so in such cases, you can say, in addition to what you have said, I have few more points to express. Okay? So these are some of the ways in which you can score merit points in a group discussion. Okay, so if you are the initiator of a conversation, they'll identify you as a good team leader, and if you disagree or interrupt them in a polite manner, it means you have good interpersonal skills. Okay, so all these qualities of yours are being assessed through group discussion. So a group discussion is very, very, very relevant. Okay, keep that in mind. Now, the basic GD etiquettes that you need to follow. Okay, if somebody says a valid point, do not sit quietly. You can support them in a dignified manner. And if somebody says something which is quite objectionable in nature, you can always express your dissent, but do it in a very polite manner. Be free of bias, and also try providing constructive criticisms. Offer constructive criticism that will enable the other person to grow. Okay, but at the same time, do not sit in judgment of the others. And also, do not abuse or ridicule other members of the team. Okay, uh, do not devalue what the other person has got to say, and do not make fun of the others. These are very basic GD etiquettes that you need to know while you are sitting for a group discussion. Okay. Now, let's start examining things from the point of view of the interviewer. Okay, what does an interviewer want from a candidate? What is he or she looking for from a candidate? Okay, so remember that nobody wants to hire you, or nobody would like to hire a bookworm. Okay, so if you are a bookworm, well and good, but no company would like to hire a bookworm, in the sense that it is not actually the subject knowledge that they are trying to look for in you. Okay, they want to see if you can apply the subject knowledge in any ground situation that is given to you. Okay, whether you are able to apply the subject knowledge. Your subject knowledge has already been tested previously through the written test. Okay, so you have cracked that, and that is why you're sitting for the interview right here. Okay, so nobody would want to check your subject knowledge unless you are giving interview as a teacher. Okay, where definitely you'll be asked questions relating to pertaining to your subject. So apart from that, being a bookworm is not going to help you much. Okay, it's good that you have relevant subject knowledge, but at the same time, how far are you able to apply it in real life situation is what is significant when it comes to an interview. I hope you got the difference. And another thing that would be tested on is your confidence level. How confident are you, or how far can you appear confident? Sometimes you need to fake confidence, right? In certain situations, even though you might be very down to like quite nervous, how can you appear to be confident? Okay. So your confidence level will be tested, and then how do you handle complex situations? So how before that, how do they check your confidence level? Okay, one thing they can ascertain, that is the level of confidence can be ascertained through your body language and your gestures. If you keep on touching your face, showing unwarranted gestures, okay, in such cases it will make the interview board think that you aren't confident enough, that you are rather fidgety, okay, or you are rather nervous. Okay, so confidence level can be read from your body language. And then how do you handle complex situation? Okay, so they will give you some certain problematic situations for you to ponder over, and you will have to come up with a solution. Okay, a logical solution. Okay, so being logical is also very important. They want to see whether you are able to make logical decisions. Okay, whether you are smart enough to make logical decisions, and your qualities will also be tested. Okay, whether you are loyal, whether you are truthful, whether you are honest, whether you are trustworthy. All these qualities will also be assessed by the interview board. Okay, and then creativity is very fundamental. Okay, so they want to see if you are such kind of a candidate who can come up with a creative solution to problematic situations. Okay, a company can remain stagnant if the employees there, okay, of that particular company is not having enough creativity. Okay, so creativity is very, very, very necessary. And the final thing they would want to know from you is whether you're serious about the job or whether you're merely job hunting. Okay, for example, in many walk-in interviews, you'd find different candidates just giving interview for the sake of giving interview. Okay, so they can see right through you. This interview board is a group of very experienced individual, and they have interviewed many people before you, and they'll definitely know whether you're serious about this particular job or whether you're merely job hunting. Okay, merely giving a job interview for the sake of getting a job. Okay, so all these things will be what they'll try to analyze and get to know more of through an interview. Okay, now before you enter the interview room, always make sure that you'll be on time, you'll be punctual. Okay, and suppose you have an interview in a far off place. Okay, you need to go via train or bus, or you will have to travel long distance. Always make a plan and always try to be punctual before the interview board. Okay, so that you aren't nervous, okay, when you reach the interview room. Okay, and tell to yourself how important this job is. Okay, ask yourself, why do you need this particular job? Okay, so that you'll take it seriously. Okay, and then remember that these members, this interview board or interview group that you are having in front of you, is a group of people who are very well experienced in terms of their profession. Okay, so make sure that you respect the interview panel. Okay, and in numerous occasions you will be provoked. They'll ask you provoking questions. Okay, so tell yourself that whatever be the condition, you won't lose your cool, or you won't lose your temper. You will not get provoked. Try telling it to yourself. Okay, they might put you in tough situations where you might get provoked. Okay, so try telling yourself that this is one way to test you. Okay, so to see how you behave well. Okay, when you work in a firm where if you're given a job where you'll have to interact with customers, and if you're put in a problematic situation, they want to see how you tackle it. Okay, that is why they might ask questions to intentionally provoke you. So tell yourself that you won't get provoked no matter what. Okay, and remember that even if you do not get the job, it's not the end of the world. It's okay. Okay, you can always yet again try for another job. Okay, and when does your assessment begin? Okay, Okay, your assessment begins right from the moment you enter the interview room. All right. So these are in this particular PPT, these are something you're already familiar with. Okay, so once you're inside the interview room, walk erect. Okay, second thing is maintain eye contact. Look at each member of the interview board, maintaining eye contact, and greet everyone in a loud and clear voice. Okay, and if there is, even if there is only one female member, okay, within the interview board, make sure to greet the ladies first. Okay, so and always smile pleasantly and shake hands only if they offer you their hand. Okay, shake hands only if offered, and while you are giving a handshake, make sure that your handshake is a firm one. Okay, do not make a handshake very casual and loose. It can indicate that you are quite nervous and fidgety and tense. Okay, so give a very firm handshake and provide handshake only if they offer you their hand. Okay, and also wait for a signal. I'm sorry. Wait for a signal to sit, and do not drag your chair and sit. Wait for a signal until and unless they ask you to sit. Stand there waiting. Okay. In the interview panel, okay, when you'll be carrying your CV, your resume with you. Okay, so offer your testimonial file with both hands. Okay, if suppose if this is a testimonial file you're having, just offer it with both your hands and wait for them to speak first. Wait for the panel members to speak first. Never initiate the conversation. Okay, be polite enough to wait. Okay, and unless and until they ask you to sit and talk about something, wait until then. Okay, and while they're perusing through your CV, while they're going through your CV, do not speak unless you're asked to. Okay, if for example if they see something interesting, they might ask you that in between, so respond to that question and then keep quiet. Okay, and unless they start speaking first, do not initiate the conversation, and always speak the truth. Okay, always speak the truth. Okay, because in one way or the other, otherwise they are going to find it out. Okay, if you're working for that particular firm, they'll find it out sooner or later, so it's always uh, important to be trustworthy, to ensure that you speak only the truth. Okay, and they might ask you a few casual questions in order to make you get comfortable. All right. And certain things you need to take note of while you're attending for an interview is, do not wear jazzy clothes to any interview. And if you are already familiar with the kind of clothes that that particular company usually wears, so if the particular company follows some kind of a dress code, know it beforehand and try dressing in a similar manner. Okay, but if it is ambiguous, if you doesn't know what the kind of dress code is, always wear a formal clothing. Okay, in order to be on the safer side, wear or formal clothing. Okay, so dress code is very essential, and show only appropriate gestures. Do not keep on touching your face or fidgeting your hands. It indicates that you're quite nervous. Okay, so if you're talking about something which you're very passionate about, then such kind of gesturing is all right. Okay, so show appropriate gestures and do not indicate that you're not too nervous. Okay, and always be humble and polite, and you can always disagree with what the interview panel is saying, but do it in a humble and polite manner, and there is no need to be submissive. Okay, if they are disrespecting your values or your opinion, okay, you can express your dissent in a polite manner, and but do not be submissive. Okay, I hope you got my point. And always do not keep on repeating phrases and sentences, and always be calm, composed, and true to yourself. Okay? These are certain key things that you need to know. Okay, so the very first question that they're going to ask you is about introducing yourself. Okay, so this is a very common question. We feel that it's a very common question, but it's actually a tricky question, and is more of a psychological question. Okay, it's a kind of introspection we do when we are introducing ourselves. Okay, okay. Does anyone want to speak up in between? All right. Okay, so this is more of a psychological question, and as I already mentioned, it's a kind of an introspection. You are analyzing yourself. Okay, you are trying to see yourself, uh, and they want to see how you look at yourself. Okay, so some of the new questions will originate from what you speak. Up to a certain extent, if you make your introduction interesting enough, if it is quite catchy, they'll be, if you're able to hook the interview panel based on the kind of introduction you are giving, then you will have the opportunity to maneuver or to channel the interview in your favor up to a certain extent. Okay? Suppose you are saying to the interview board that you are a swimmer. Okay, you are a trained swimmer. Okay, so many people around us might not be a trained swimmer, and if the interview panel finds it interesting, they'll ask you some predictable questions which you might be thorough with, such as they might be asking you questions like, what are the different kinds of stroke that you know as a swimmer, or they might ask you about what is your training goal, okay, for a day or for a week. Okay, so such questions might come which is that is something from your forte. Okay, so there is an opportunity to channel the interview in your favor based on the kind of introduction you are giving yourself. Okay, and suppose you are saying the interview in a very bland manner, saying, good morning everyone, I am Asmin and I'm coming from Ernakulam. Okay, so it's a very ordinary kind of introduction you're stating there, and it shows that you're a very mediocre and unprepared person, and you're not creative in your approach. Okay, and suppose if you're repeating everything as given in your CV, okay, which you have already provided them to. Okay, you've already provided your CV to the interview panel, so there is no point in reiterating what is already stated in the CV. Okay, so it means that you're not creative in your approach. Okay, and that you're quite boring. Okay, so what will you do to make our introduction quite unique from all the other different candidates? They are constantly hearing these introduction, and if you do not make it catchy in the initial phase itself, it's going to get boring. Okay, they might just see you merely as yet another candidate and not somebody as being unique. Okay, and never sound rehearsed and always speak the truth. Okay, these two things are very important. Okay, so what can we do to make our introduction interesting? Okay, here is a sample introduction given. If any of you can read it out, I'll be very glad. Can someone please read it out for me? Yes, somebody from the student side.
Ma'am, can I?
Yes, dear, what's your name?
I'm Ajisha.
Yes, Ajisha, please.
Okay. Sir, I'm from a modest family of. My father works for as a dash. I did my schooling from and then graduated from. During my university days, I had the opportunity to be in charge of activity, and I think I did very well because my colleagues and my teachers were always happy with me and encouraged me. In my previous organization, I was working. In my previous organization, I was working after assignment which brought laurels to the company in event. My siblings are working for this company and are well settled. I think that is my humble self, unless you want to know anything specific about me.
Thank you, Ajisha. Okay, so this is a kind of introduction that you can give. Okay, so let's analyze this particular introduction we are having here. So rather than merely introducing you by stating your name, this is one way in which you can introduce yourself. Okay, so initially you're saying that you are from a modest family. Okay, it means you are indicating certain set of values there. You're showing that you are a realistic person, you are a grounded and humble individual, and at the same time, when you talk about your parents, my father is working as such and such, my mother is doing such and such a job, or she is a housewife, you're indicating your social status. Okay, so these are something that we do not find in a CV usually, isn't it? Okay, so you are also saying that, stating that you respect your parents, you value them in your life. Okay, Now, the next important thing you're doing is you're indicating where you studied and where you did your, uh, or where you got your graduation from. Okay, so it shows that you're proud of the institution from where you graduated. Okay, you're also telling them about the reputation of your institution, and also you are acknowledging the contribution this particular institution had in your growth as an individual. Okay, so these are the things achieved when we talk about your schooling and your university days. Okay, and also you are talking about your contribution to that particular institution. Okay, when you say that because my colleagues and teachers were always happy with me, they encouraged me. Okay, and if you had any prior working experience, and if you mentioned that, for example, in my previous organization, I was working after dash assignment, which brought laurels to the company in dash event. Okay, so when you do that, you are talking about the nature of your job. Okay, and you're also telling them that you were an important part of your previous organization. So that is what is being expressed in that particular statement. And finally, what is the necessity of speaking about your siblings if you're having any? Why do you need to speak about your siblings? Okay, why? Because you're showing them that you do not have any additional baggage, or you do not have any unwarranted baggage with you, and you can dedicate your time wholeheartedly for the development of the firm, because that will be what the interview board might be looking for. Okay, so that is why you need to speak about your siblings or your family for that matter. And also finally, you are modest enough to offer them whether they want to know anything further about you. Okay, so this is one way in which you can introduce yourself. All right, now, yes. Now, based on what you have spoken, the next set of questions may arise out of it. Okay. So, if you say something which is quite catchy to the interview panel, they might prick you on that, and they will ask you a question based on what you have said. Okay. Suppose you're giving an interview and you have got your graduation from the Delhi University. Okay, so they might want to ask you about the place of your university. They might ask you to speak about Delhi in general. So here they do not want to know about the problems of that area, but they are interested in knowing about how socially aware you are. Okay, you can talk about the pollution in Delhi. Okay, or many other major issues faced as a uh, student being in Delhi. Okay, so they might want to know, or they are not interested in knowing the problems of that area, but merely to know whether you're socially aware about the things that are happening around you. Okay, and if there is some kind of a social issue, they will want to see if you're able to come up with a solution to it through logical thought process. Okay, so this they might make you to speak. They might be asking these questions to make you speak, to see whether you are good at making conversations, whether you have good interpersonal skills, and this is a point where they'll try to provoke you. Okay? So, and they want to see how you will respond to such a kind of provocations, to see whether you respect the other person's point of view. Okay, and if you are working for a firm where you'll have to interact with many customers, they want to ensure that you are somebody who can handle problematic situations very well. So depending upon what you say in your introduction, that can be used to channel the interview in one particular direction up to a certain extent. Okay, so keep that in mind. And now let me give you a very brief example. Okay, for example, you might be asked this question: what is your, if you are a fresher? Okay, assuming that you are a fresher, you might be asked, what was your favorite subject in the university? Okay, so you are saying the answer, it was financial management, sir, or financial management, madam. And then based on that, so here your subject knowledge is tested. Okay, now based on this particular statement, they will want to see if you can apply the subject knowledge in any practical ground situation. Okay, so they might ask you one further question, that is, what do you understand by working capital, and why do you think a small steel company like us would require a huge working capital, while a bigger online company, an online retailer, would hardly require any working capital? Okay, so suppose you are a commerce graduate. Okay, such kind of questions might be asked. So there might be different kind. I'm going to introduce you to 4 different candidates who are going to answer this question in 4 different manners. Okay, and we are going to analyze and see who will get selected. All right. There are 4 different candidates here, and the candidate 1 is saying he or she is describing what is meant by working capital. Okay, the working capital is defined as current assets, but he or she doesn't know the practical applicability of that particular question. Okay, so the person is apologizing, saying, "But I'm sorry, sir, I do not know why the company would require." Okay, so do you think this particular person would get selected? Yes or no? Your values can be assessed through this particular state of question. That is, you are honestly telling them that you do not know the answer, so they'll understand that you are an honest individual. But at the same time, what is a demerit here in answering like that? You have easily given up, isn't it? Without attempting to answer that question, you have easily given up. Okay, so you have little probability of getting selected. Why? Because in a real life situation, when you are provided with a problem, rather than trying to come up with a particular solution to that problem, what will you do? You'll easily accept defeat. Okay, so this any firm or organization is not looking for a yes or no candidate. Okay, so even if you are not able to find an appropriate answer to a question that is posed, okay, it is good that you are being honest, but at the same time, try giving some kind of a logical statement. Okay, or try finding out or coming up with a logical conclusion or logical solution to the problem. Okay, rather than giving up very easily. Okay, so this is a way in which candidate 1 responded. Let's see how candidate 2 has responded to it. Okay, so the candidate 2 responded to the first question: what is meant by working capital? The working capital is defined as so and so. Okay, but then he or she says, I'm not sure why a company should have a larger working capital than an online retailer, but I think such and such, or probably in my opinion, and so on. So he or she is trying to come up with some kind of an answer rather than giving up easily, unlike the first candidate. Okay, so here we understand that he or she has good application of the knowledge, but he or she is not logical. He or she is not able to come up with a proper answer to the question, but the candidate has not given up very easily. He or she does not accept defeat easily. He or she has made some kind of an attempt to give an answer. Okay, so this candidate has more probability of getting selected than candidate 1. Okay, and when he or she confronts some kind of a problematic solution, they'll try to find a path. Okay, when faced with such kind of a challenge. Okay, so the second candidate is much more diplomatic and has more probability of getting selected. Okay, now there'll be an altogether third different kind of candidate who doesn't know answer to any of these questions, who says some kind one or the other kind of illogical statement. Okay, so the third candidate gives some lengthy answers, and it is neither correct nor logical in any manner. Okay, so the interview board will come to know that this candidate is not logical, he's not knowledgeable, he's overconfident, and he's coming up with some funny story. He's merely making up stories. Okay, so these are the kind of candidates who, if they get selected, will keep on making excuses, and they'll keep on offering justification for all their inactions, and these kind of candidates will be rejected. Okay, in the first part of the interview itself. Okay, they are certainly not the right kind of candidates. Okay, and then we will have the fourth, the perfect set of candidates who will have the solution to the question asked. Okay, they'll be able to answer the question in a logical manner. They'll be able to find the right answer to the question. Okay, so that candidate has a 100% chance of getting selected. They are knowledgeable. They know the practical application to the book knowledge. They're logical and practical, and confronting with a real life challenge, they'll be able to do well, or they will be able to manage it well. Okay, and now let's examine some frequently asked questions in an interview, and how can you make your answers to such kind of questions. Okay, I'll just quickly read them out. They'll ask you about your strength and weakness. They'll want to know why you are. Yes.
Excuse me, ma'am. Can you please move to the next slide? because you are still displaying that something about yourself.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is the slide now visible? Is it
So
visible
thank
now?
you, ma'am.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes,
Thank you,
ma'am.
thank you.
Thank
All
you,
right.
ma'am.
Yes. So some frequently asked questions are they'll be asking you about your strengths and weaknesses. They'll want to know why. If you were working in a previous organization, they'll want to know why you're leaving your current job or why do you want to join their company. Okay. And they'll ask you what will happen if you do not get this job. Okay. Or why do you think we should hire you? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or imagine that you are the CEO of this company and what are the changes you will bring about. Okay, so these are some of the very expected questions that can come in an interview, and we are going to see how to answer these kind of questions in the best manner possible. Okay, so the panel is not interested in knowing how you answer them, not interested in knowing your answers but how you answer them. Okay, so based on this they'll try to infer certain qualities you are having. Okay, so how will you talk about your strength and weaknesses? Just like how you gave your self introduction, this is also a question where you need to introspect. Okay, if I'm going very fast, please do interrupt me in between. Okay, yes. So suppose if you are asked to talk about your strength. Okay, so this is where you can talk about your qualities and values. Okay, so the interview board is not really interested in knowing your strength or weaknesses, but they want to see what do you think about yourself, how do you see yourself as an individual. Okay, that is what the interview board is trying to find out from you. Okay, so there you can talk about your qualities and values. You can say that you are a hardworking individual, you're sincere, and always do not just say these like statement saying I'm a very sincere person or I'm a hardworking person. Quote examples. Okay, say about some significant contribution you have made in your previous institution or while you're doing your degree or your PG program. Some of the changes that you brought about as an individual. Okay, quote state examples by saying that you are a hardworking person or a sincere person or a talented person. Okay, and talk about your achievements. Okay, but do not be brag about it. Talk about your achievement and do not devalue it. Okay, we have the tendency to brag about ourselves or to devalue our achievements. Do not do that. Talking, you need to talk, you can talk about your achievements, but do it in a polite and humble manner. Okay, and you can also speak about your or tell them that you have good interpersonal skills, and you can talk about the way in which you have dealt with public before. Okay, where you'll have had to interact with uh, public and how well you handle challenging positions. Okay, so you can highlight all these things but do it in a humble and polite manner. Okay? We all know how to talk about our strengths, right? But the question is how can you talk about your weaknesses? Okay, so while expressing weaknesses, put it in such a manner that it doesn't reveal your weaknesses. Okay, you should make these weaknesses as your strengths. Okay, so that is where you can tell them that you'll actually be uh, by taking you in, it will be to the advantage of the company. Okay, so you're telling them that these are actually my weaknesses but it's actually my strength. Okay, for example, you can say that I do have a couple of shortcomings. I am too organized, I am a perfectionist when it comes to completion of tasks, or I am critical about my own works, I'm too much detail oriented. So if we examine these kind of statements, are these actually weaknesses? They are actually weaknesses but they are actually your strengths, right? So and also tell them that if somebody points out my weaknesses, then I'm sure I'll definitely try to improve. Okay, so what does this statements tell to the interview board about you as a person? Okay, here you're showing them that you are a very practical person, you are aware of your shortcomings and you're willing to improve upon them. Okay, so this is what you're trying to point out when you make such kind of a statement. Okay, now the next question they might ask you is if you had some previous working experience in some other firm. Okay, for example, you might have worked at another firm for a duration of 6 months or so, or maybe 1 year or 2 years. They might ask you why you're leaving it, why you're leaving your current job. Okay, why do you want to join our company? Okay. So always be truthful to these kind of statements. Okay. And one genuine reason that you can tell them is that you're looking for growth. Okay. Probably the company that you're working for earlier might have been rather small, and like every human being, you also have the right to think about your growth and prosperity. Okay. That is, you want to grow personally and professionally. You want to grow as an individual, and you also want to grow professionally, and that is why you're looking for better prospects. Okay. So growth prospect is always a safe answer that you can provide to indicate the reason why you're leaving the current job. Okay. And suppose you are asked about your current employer or current posts. You are currently working in a firm, okay, but you're looking for better opportunities, and they will be asking you about your working environment in the previous company. Okay, so you can talk about the nature of your job, but never ever speak negatively about your present company or your supervisors. Okay, whatever bad experience, good or bad experience you have had in your previous organization, keep it to yourself. Do not speak negatively about them. Okay, so instead you can say it. So if you talk negatively about them, then that will be viewed in a negative light by the present board members. Okay, so your loyalty will come under suspicion if you do that. Okay, so instead say that you can say that your contract is getting over and therefore you're looking for a new job. Okay, that's a very safe answer you can give. Okay. Now they'll ask you, what do you want to, or why do you want to join our company? So this is an answer you can prepare well in advance, have a thorough understanding of the particular company for which you are going to give the interview, and always try to ascertain the nature of your job there. Okay, and if you are well aware of it, you can already prepare an answer to the question. Okay, so correlate your own experience with the requirement of the company, and then explain to the interview board that you have such and such qualities, and because of this it will be mutually beneficial for you as well as for the company. Okay, and they'll ask you this question, that is, what would you do if you do not get this job? So yet again, be truthful in your answer. Say that I'll definitely feel bad about it, but I know that this is not the end. I'll understand. I'll try to introspect and understand my shortcomings, and I'll try to improve upon them, and I'll keep trying for better positions. Okay, so you can say that if they ask you a question as to what if you do not get this particular job. Now, another expected question is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Okay, so always ensure that when you answer this question, always make sure that when you speak about your own growth, along with it, speak about the company's growth. Okay, uh, you say that I'll be shouldering at least 3 times in 5 years time. I'll be shouldering more responsibilities than what I'm doing currently, and I'll utilize these 5 years to gain experience on my skills and enhance my qualification. Okay, and by this time, many people like me, or the head of this company, will have made this company grow at least 2 times in 5 years. So when my time comes, I'll uh, do things up to or to the best of my ability. Okay, so by saying that, you're ensuring that, or you're making them understand that you're confident as a person, and you have long-term goals when it comes to the company's achievement or your personal growth, and also that you are a realistic and practical person. Okay, remember, you cannot run alone, and that your progress, you can progress only if your company progresses along with you. Okay, so that's it. And then, hypothetically, imagine yourself to be the CEO of the company, and think about what changes you can bring about. Okay. So when they ask you about any change that you can bring about, do not answer that question. Okay. Why? Because you are not yet part of that company. You do not know what is happening within that particular firm. Okay, so you do not know anything about that company, so never imagine any change or speak about it. Okay, so if you do that, they'll think that you are merely a person of illusion. You're not being realistic. Okay, you need to give a realistic answer to the question as much as possible. Okay, so how can you answer this particular question? You can say that if I am offered the job, it will take years for me to reach that level. To be a CEO is something that cannot happen in my immediate future. Okay, so during that time, a lot of people would have taken this company to a greater height, and when my turn comes, I will accept the challenge and do my duty uh, to the best of my ability with all humility. Okay, so in answering likewise, you're telling them that you're confident, you're ambitious, and you are also telling them that you will be an excellent team player. And also when your time comes, when it is your time to play team leader, you will contribute significantly towards the company, just like what people before you have done. Okay, so you're giving them a very logical answer. Okay, and finally they would ask you, the interview panel will ask you whether you want to know anything. Okay, whether you would like to ask anything. Okay, so this is merely a customary question. Okay, so now until now they have been judging you based on the kind of answers you have provided. Okay, so now they are going to judge you based on the question that you are going to ask. Okay, so avoid very obvious and ridiculous questions. Okay, so this is an opportunity to show certain qualities of yours to the interview board. Okay, so you can ask some questions like, to whom would I be reporting, and does the organization offer opportunities for further studies and career enhancement? Will there be opportunities to shoulder additional responsibilities besides the task assigned? Okay, so these are some of the questions you can ask them. Okay, and if you want to know about the salary, do not ask about the salary to the interview board unless and until they tell you something. Okay, so if you have any concerns with regard to your salary, you can always inquire it about it at the HR department. Okay, do not ask it directly to the interview board. Now, so these are some of the expected questions that can be probably asked. Okay, and apart from that, they need to see whether you are a very observant person. Okay, so sometimes quite unexpected questions can also be asked. They might ask you about the number of steps you have climbed, okay, before you reached the interview room. Okay, one such example is provided here. That is, suppose imagine that you're going for an interview, okay, and near to the interview premise there are 5 almond trees. Okay, and now you are sitting. So some of you have observed it, and some of you didn't notice it much. Okay, and when you come before the interview panel, the interview board is asking you, how many mango trees did you actually see? Okay, they're asking you this question, how many mango trees did you see? Imagine you haven't seen any mango trees, they were actually almond trees. Okay, so there will be 4 different set of candidates, and one set of candidates will say that they didn't see any trees at all. Okay, they might be nervous, they wouldn't have noticed anything, so no particular inference is drawn out of their reply. So the only thing assessed is they are not observant enough. Okay, and now, so these questions are asked not to reject you or to select you, but to identify whether you have certain qualities required for the particular company, whether you're observant enough, whether you're calm and composed. This is what they want to assess and analyze when they're asking these questions, whether you have a critical faculty. Okay, so all these kind of things are being analyzed through such kind of questions, and you won't get selected or rejected based on such questions. Okay, and so the first set is saying that they didn't see any trees at all, and then now when the second set or second group of people will tell the interview board that they have seen n number of mango trees. Okay, so actually there haven't been any mango trees there, so these people are saying that I have seen 3 mango trees or 5 or 6 mango trees. I do not remember the numbers exactly. Okay, so these kind of candidates will come or will be seen as quite nervous. They might be lying because they are nervous, or they might be seen as blatant liars. Okay, so when these kind of individuals are selected, they are likely to bluff and submit false reports in future. Okay, so these set 2 candidates will have or are more likely to get rejected than all the other candidates. Okay, now there will be a set 3 candidates, and they'll say that since I'm sorry sir, since I was preoccupied with interview thoughts, I didn't notice any almond trees. Okay, so it means that they're not observant or reliable, they're not confident, and but they're truthful. Okay, and but in future, when they might make or come up with excuses for their inaction, they're likely to come up with excuses for the inaction. So your qualities are being tested through such kind of a question here. Okay, and finally we have this perfect list of candidates who will tell that I did not actually see any mango trees sir, but I think I saw 3 or 4 almond trees instead. Okay, so these kind of candidates, they are efficient, they are calm. Despite having an interview, they were quite calm, they were observant in nature, and they will have more of a balanced work-life equation. Okay, so none of these candidates are going to get rejected apart from set number 2. Okay, so this is to bring out, to understand, or to expose qualities of the candidates. Okay, now what if you are having a telephonic interview? Okay, so if you, so most likely now we are, if let's be hopeful that the COVID, the pandemic won't prolong and everything would get back to the normalcy. So if you are having a telephonic interview, okay, always ensure that you're free on the set time. Okay, you'll be informed prior as to when and where the time of your interview. Okay, so always be free on the set time and avoid any sort of distraction. It's always good to give your landline number rather than your mobile number, for example, based or if the network isn't strong enough where you are, it might cause distraction. Okay, and always speak in a loud and clear manner. Do not speak very hurriedly and answer question very briefly. Remember that you're not sitting in front of the interview panel where you can talk at length. Okay, so rather keep your answers short and concise, answer to the point, and do not talk in a rapid pace so that the other person won't be able to catch what you're saying, but talk in an unhurried manner. uh, and always listen carefully before fully answering. Okay, and if you haven't understood the question, you can always ask them to repeat the question in a polite manner. Okay, so since you're talking, it's a tone which is important here, and when you're talking about something which is very important, you can pause when required. Okay, so it's a kind, so you can stress upon important things by pausing when required. And when the other person, the one who is giving you the interview, is speaking something, do not interrupt. Wait for the other person to stop talking and then only uh, start speaking. Okay, and just like in an interview board, do not keep on repeating your sentences and words, and have a feel of your voice. Okay, since it's a telephonic interview, remember that your body language is not visible there. Okay, so be polite and be extra courteous and polite, because they cannot actually examine or view your body language. Okay, and when you're talking, do not be too loud or too low, and try practicing telephonic interview numerous times. Okay, ask your friends to call you and ask you certain expected questions. Okay, or try standing in front of the mirror and talking. Okay, and if suppose you are having a video call, always ensure that you are dressed formally for it. Okay, and always make sure that following telephonic interview, you call back the interview after some time, maybe after half an hour or so, and express your gratitude and pleasure over the interview. Okay, that is something that we very often forget. Okay, but it's a very polite way of doing things. Try expressing your gratitude over phone. Okay, so these are some of the things that you need to take care of while attending the interview. Okay, so that is all about the session. I hope it has been fruitful to you in some manner. Okay, so if you're having any queries or questions, please either put it in the comment box or you can ask me. Yes, thank you, Shaktivel. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am, for your valuable words. Now I invite Lishna Salam for vote of thanks.
Good morning, one and all who are present here. On behalf of English Department, KMM College, I take a privilege of proposing vote of thanks. First and foremost, I express my sincere gratitude to the honorable resource person, Mrs. Asmin, for taking the time out from her busy schedule to grace this event. Thank you, ma'am, for your inspiring and encouraging words. I extend my gratitude to the management, principal, vice principal, academic director for providing immense support to turn this event as a grand success. It's my pleasure to thank the organizing committee and enjoy English department for coming up with such a wonderful and relevant topic. Last but not the least, I thank our beloved participants for their active participation. Thank you everyone.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you for being such patient listeners. Thank you. And thank you to the KMM management and team.
Thank you, Asmin.
Yes,
I
thank
think
you, ma'am.
your presentation is very effective and useful for all the sections of students. Thank you so much. Thank you, Asmin.
Yes, thank you, ma'am, for having me. Thank you.
Okay.